Florida State didn't have 24 of their players.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State literally did not show up. That's exactly what happened. They collected the game check without showing up. None of their lineup was there. Many of their backups, so they were down to the third string in a lot of instances. And it just was not a reflection of the team they would have put out in the playoff.
But you know whose fault this is? Florida State. Their players proved that they are quitters. They used the CFP committee's decision as an excuse because they knew they were going to lose by $1 billion to Georgia, which they did anyway. And they have no one else to blame but themselves. And also, they've been acting like whiny babies now that Alabama lost. And it's time to put the baby to nap. We need to put him to sleep.
FanBuzz Weekly starts now.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to FanBuzz Weekly. I'm your host, Patrick, joined by Tyler and Will, and we're breaking down the biggest stories and hottest takes in college football. Hope everyone had a good holidays. Happy New Year. We are on to the national championship game, but first we need to talk about probably the most exciting college football playoff semifinals that we've ever seen. I don't remember both games ever coming down to the last play. Obviously talking about the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl with Alabama, Michigan, and Washington, Texas. Guys, I need your initial reactions. What do we think? Was it awesome? Did it live up to the hype? Did the committee get it right with these teams? Let's hear it.
I loved these games. I mean, the last 2 years just could not be more blessed with the semifinals games. My favorite moment, though, I loved this year. I think the Rose Bowl was iconic. Nothing will beat Ohio State as the clock struck midnight on the East Coast, just missing a field goal to just lose that game. Just the timing of it was so perfect. But I mean, the aesthetics of these two games in the semifinals, just the Rose Bowl and two just hard-nosed football teams versus these two really flashy teams in the Sugar Bowl. I loved the color combo just on my eyes, the burnt orange versus the purple. I know that has nothing to do with the football, but just looking at it felt right. And then my boy Michael Penix, I mean, he is just showing out on a national stage. IU's finest. We made it 30 seconds into the episode before I brought up IU. But just I could not be more I could not be happier with how these games ended up. Just absolute, just iconic moments that I'll remember forever.
I can't believe we didn't also hear about Hoosier Kalen DeBoer. But seriously, what a great weekend. This is the best playoff weekend Indiana's ever had. But seriously, now I can say I have cried at the end of 3 of the last 4 playoff games. I cried after Michigan lost to TCU out of despair. I cried when that field goal missed by the width of a second goalpost out of laughter. And then I cried out of joy when Michigan beat Alabama by shoving Jalen Milroe on 4th and goal. Go Blue. This is the year. That was the greatest single moment of my whole sports fandom life. I've never had more personally riding on a game emotionally. Those two teams, man, I've complained about the committee doing the wrong thing from a fairness perspective, and I stand by that. But from a quality of competition and entertainment standpoint, I don't think I was ever on the other side. That this wouldn't be the best weekend of playoff games ever. It really lived up. Kalen DeBoer made some really weird decisions at the end of Texas-Washington, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about more in depth as the next week goes on. But man, those were so entertaining, and I think we have the two most deserving teams in the country in the national championship. I do think it's really funny that after all of everything that's happened, the two teams in the Natty are the teams that would have been there via the BCS or via the poll era, because the Rose Bowl would have just been number 1 Michigan versus number 2 Washington. So I don't know, maybe everything worked out exactly the way it was supposed to. We're going to get 2 awesome teams fighting for a national championship.
Man, I was just here for the drama. Like,
yeah.
When you look at like the final play call at Alabama, obviously everyone's coming for Tommy Rees. I don't know if it was like a botched sort of snap. And there's been a lot of thoughts on Twitter about that play call. And even the Texas-Washington ending where Washington seemed to score to screw themselves over. They had the dude get hurt, which cost them 40 seconds. It was just that's what you want. You want the theatrics, you want the edge of your seat, the nail biting. And I mean, if you're the committee, you're sitting back we got it right. We did it.
Speaking of the drama, I don't know if anyone saw Connor Stallions was in attendance at the Rose Bowl.
Yes.
I don't know why people are freaking out. If he was working for us, theoretically, wouldn't he have been at the Sugar Bowl?
I just think it's weirder that that's a good one. Oh, that took me a second. I just think it's weirder was he with Chase Winovich? That just seemed kind of weird. My favorite moment of the entire game, I know Blake Corum's touchdown is going to win it, is going to get a lot of attention. That 4th down call Just a very sneaky good move from Sharon Moore. Having Corum line up on one side, move him to the other. That requires communication from the linebackers to see what coverages need to be adjusted when he just simply moves to the other side of the quarterback. But to do that and then have him run that flat on fourth down in the biggest moment of the game, and he's just wide the heck open. And my favorite moment for that play is the disdain you could see as Corum runs by Nick Saban. And he's just fed up with his defense. There are just so many iconic moments, but that one just really stood out to me. I thought that final drive to get into overtime for Michigan was just absolutely beautiful. So many clutch moments, and I've been a big JJ McCarthy guy. This game, above all else, has me believing in him as an NFL prospect, just because of the sheer stones, like that weird reverse, not flea flicker, but that double pass thing. Just a one hand catch that. And then deliver it while getting hit. Because if he does not catch that ball and it's a fumble, this game's basically over. Just some unbelievable moments from McCarthy.
We were talking about some questionable play calls, a Milrow play, whatever the hell Kalen was doing, but it's going to get forgotten because it worked out. But Tyler, you're talking about Sharon's play calling. I was terrified. The third down play before that fourth down, we just we put Alex Orji out at wide receiver, put him in motion, and then threw a single read slant. I was livid. And then we got Corum out in open space in the next play, and all is forgiven. I thought I did a good job. If you looked at last week's episode, I think I nailed a lot of things about this Rose Bowl, but one thing I missed was that the two biggest impact offensive plays of the whole game might be Blake Corum receptions. That's pretty crazy. I didn't really see that going.
Well, shout out to Alabama and Texas for terrific seasons. I think a lot of people wrote Alabama off, and you shouldn't write Nick Saban off ever, but especially after the loss to Texas, both had terrific seasons, and obviously Texas is heading to the SEC, so I'm scared. So let's move on. Let's move on and talk about Michael Penix Jr. He's going to have his work cut out against him with the Michigan defense. Obviously, they completely shut down Jalen Milrow. JJ McCarthy has fought through a lot of adversity this season, but now he faces the biggest test against the Huskies. So I got to ask you guys, which quarterback are you riding with? Like, which one's got the dog in them? JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix Jr.?
Will, you can go ahead. I know you want to talk about McCarthy, and I know you want to talk about that Penix matchup.
I'm going to give the most diplomatic answer possible. Sure. I agree with Jim that JJ is the best quarterback we've ever had as a Wolverine. Everyone freaking out about the comments didn't even forget reading the whole post. They didn't even read the half of that sentence where Jim says in college football. Obviously, Tom Brady's the greatest football player ever, but man, JJ, he has a chance to win one more game and go out with the highest winning percentage of any modern college football quarterback. A ring, 2 wins over Ohio State, just a tremendous resume. And like Tyler said, he has incredible poise. He attacks the middle of the field like nobody else in college, pretty much, and just his mentality is actually ridiculous. I don't know if it's the weird meditation thing he does before the game, but he's locked in. There's no moment too big or small for JJ. Although I guess actually playing Bowling Green might have been too small of a moment for JJ because of those freaking 3 interceptions. But seeing him shake off that first play non-pick was tremendous. Delivered a huge performance. I don't think he should have been game MVP. I think it should have been Blake. But that being said, JJ's the best. He's the better pro prospect. And I think there's consideration that he could have as good of a career as those top 2 guys, Drake May and Caleb Williams. But as far as college, man, it's obviously Penix. He's one of the most prolific passers in the country. He probably should have won the Heisman when all is said and done. I mean, he was on kind of cruise control in a lot of the regular season games, but against Oregon twice and against Texas, he was putting balls on rope downfield, there's easy throws in Washington's scheme because those receivers are so good. But I was just texting Tyler, how did Penix find that window? How did he find that window? And it's not like Milrow who can only hit it deep or other guys who can only hit the checkdowns. Every throw on the field is there for Penix. I don't know if he has the fastball, the athleticism, the health, the age to be the perfect NFL prospect. But as far as who's going to have the better performance on Monday, I would not bet against Penix.
I want to take Penix as far as the better matchup. We can talk about that in a second. I do want to give McCarthy a shout out. The 2 things that I really wanted to see from him are just composure and toughness. Holy crap. In that Rose Bowl, he could not have shown those better. Like getting crushed by Dallas Turner, shaking that off. And then right before leading that crazy drive, there's just no fear in that guy. No panic. He's seen everything at this point and just in the biggest moments didn't blink, which I really appreciate. I want to say Penix, I cannot believe how well he was throwing the football in that Sugar Bowl game. I mean, I guess I can because he's been doing it all year. It's gonna come down to is how are Michigan's corners gonna play against all of this talent? Because I'll tell you what, I do think that's Michigan's biggest strength after watching that game. I mean, Will Johnson's, is it Sainer still? I'm not gonna be able to pronounce that name
Mike
correctly.
Sainer still, yeah.
just so many DBs. They got size. I'm very curious to see how they match up with those wide receivers. And I think that's what Texas severely lacked in that game. I thought Washington, outside of almost blowing it, was just in complete control of that game. And just because Texas didn't have the DBs to match up with these wide receivers, where I think Michigan does have that.
I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to go a step further than you, Tyler. I think the two best positional units on any team in the country, obviously other than quarterback, because that's not really a positional unit. The best units are the Michigan secondary and the Washington wideouts. I think this is the definition of a battle of the Titans in terms of that specific matchup. 3 NFL pros in the Washington receiving core, maybe first rounders. Definitely Odunze, but maybe all 3. And the Michigan secondary, Will Johnson on 33 Milroe dropbacks, 2 targets and no completions. I mean, Rod Moore was great at safety. He cleaned up some big plays. Sanders still is a dog in the slot. I mean, seriously, it's just it's the heart of this team. It's not our offensive line. It's not JJ. It's not Blake. I mean, emotionally, it's Blake, but as far as the best football players on the Michigan team, it's Will Johnson and the rest of the secondary. And those receivers are just crazy for UW.
Yeah, I'm sometimes you got to go with the intangibles here. You guys know I'm a big intangibles guy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Penix for the simple fact that after the game, he shouted out his boy who's like in prison. He was straight up like, "Hey, free my boy." And it's like, all right, I'm sold. I'm like, that's all I need to hear. This dude, like, he's just a straight up baller, man. And watching that game, I'm not betting against him. It doesn't matter who he's going up against. Let's move on to Blake Corum at Michigan. He's been one of the best running backs in college football. And actually, when I was looking through his stats, and his like recent games, like his touchdowns look like a Sudoku board. It'll be like 2, 1, 3. Like the amount of touchdowns that dude scores is kind of absurd. So I want to talk about him and sort of like how Washington will stop him versus Rome Odunze. Hopefully I got that right. So I want to know which sort of playmaker for Michigan or Washington would you guys put your money on, and which one is going to sort of, put the other team or put their team over the hump?
I know I'm the wideouts coach, so I'm biased, but there are so many good wide receivers in this upcoming draft class. I mean, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, just Keon Coleman. There's so many. Every time I watch Odunze, I'm floored. Because everyone knows about the jump ball ability. I mean, when you throw a ball his way, it's not 50-50. It's more like 70-30. He's just going to somehow come away with it. His ability to separate at that size, because, again, jump balls, you don't require separation. Just require incredible skill. He can do both. He can also separate. I cannot say the same about Keon Coleman, and that guy comes away with some incredible contested catches. Odunze's ability to gear down when going full speed and then just create that separation blows me away every time he does it. He's just an absolute complete wide receiver. I think it's crazy that there's some conversations that he's wide receiver 3, and there is an argument to be made, but that's just how talented this draft class is with wide receivers. But every time I watch Odunze, I just continue to be more and more impressed. And then on top of all of that, he blocks his tail off. Like, he literally blocked a guy like into the stands in the Sugar Bowl. And it just opens up things to the running game. I cannot say enough good things about this kid. I know Will Johnson is going to be a huge matchup for him. But I just think if he can make 1 or 2 huge explosive plays, it's going to change the script for this game. And I'm all in on him. I think he is a complete wide receiver.
Look how excited you're getting. I love it.
I love him. I absolutely love him. He's incredible.
So it's interesting you said who's your money on, because in terms of putting your money on Blake Corum, for the betting folks out there, I've never seen player prop prices like Corum's. Like his first touchdown, anytime touchdown, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, like all of the prices are ridiculously juiced, and they're still worth it, except for the 3 touchdowns. Please don't do that. But seriously, he has scored every game, only player in FBS who's done that this year. He's the Michigan all-time touchdown leader for a season, also for a career. Coming back from that ACL tear when he could have kind of taken his NFL check with like late day 2, early day 3 pick. Instead, he's come back. He's gone from a really great Wolverine to a Rushmore Wolverine. And he is the guy to put your money on, so to speak, in this game, whether that means literally or just who you want to believe in to have a big game. Odunze is going to be a better pro, almost certainly. I mean, Tyler broke it down really nicely. There's nothing he does not do really well as a wideout. And obviously, Corum does amazing things as a running back, but his frame, his ACL, there's just reasons that you don't want to take him. But as far as a college player, Corum's better. Corum's the best running back in the country. Odunze is probably not the best receiver in the country, but he's close in a great receiver year with Marvin Harrison and such. But in terms of this game, Tyler touched on it. It's not even close. Washington's run defense is a real problem for them. It's one of their greatest weaknesses. Whereas Will, this is college. Will is a top corner who shadows receivers. He followed Marvin Harrison, and you could see the huge shift from that first half when Will got that huge pick to the second when Will was hurt. Will is going to make things really, really hard for Dunze. He's not going to shut him down because nobody can do that. But this could be a Jalen McMillan or Jalen Polk game. I mean, there's no reason. That's the other thing for Dunze. This group is so deep that if he's not there, don't force it. There's literally no reason to. As good as he is, there's two other great guys, whereas Michigan is going to Corum early, often, and with high levels of success against Washington.
Let's get to final predictions. How do you guys think this game will play out? Who do you guys have winning? Give me the score. I'm going to start by saying Washington wins 28-24. Just watching that offense, I'm not sure anyone can stop it. I'm not saying Texas has the best defense or anything, but they've been doing this all season long. I'm not going against Penix. That's who I got. Who you guys got?
I think it's pretty bold to say we're not really going to score more against Washington than we did against Alabama, but I do think it's really hard to stop this offense. It's maybe the best in the country. It's definitely the most explosive and exciting. I'm going Michigan 37-31, though. I think we should be able to get a few stops. I think you can make the deep ball. Penix is amazing at it, but it's not a high percentage way. Over a long period of time, you hit a lot of them. It's a lot of value, but in one game, you're not going to hit it every single time. And I think it might only take a couple stops because I just don't see Washington getting any resistance against our run game. They have a bottom 20 run defense by EPA. We have Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, and frankly, now that he's healthy, JJ's a runner, and he's really good at it when needed. Whereas our secondary, I'm not going to say they have the edge against the Washington Whiteouts. I actually think they have the disadvantage, but it's close enough that we can slow those guys to the extent that they're not going to score every possession like I think we can.
The thing that really worries me in this game is Dylan Johnson's injury at the end of that. I mean, that guy's had a sensational final stretch of the college football season for Washington. Run so hard. Even if he's not 100%, like that's a huge factor is him being hobbled. So I'm making Washington one-dimensional against that secondary does scare me. If these last two games were any indication, I think it's going to be a crazy close game. I just love that these are two completely different teams in terms of aesthetics and identity. Give me 29-28. Michigan, Jim Harbaugh goes for 2 at the end. Gets it. Storybook ending. That's what I'm going to go with.
We got to clip these just in case we're like spot on, like dead accurate. Also, I'm hoping that Michael Penix Jr. stays healthy. Did you guys see the graphic? And Tyler, I'm sure you know this, that he's had a season-ending injury in like 4 of his 25 seasons he's played in college football. Like, I was like, what? How does that even happen, dude? And I mean, maybe NFL teams are sort of looking at that too. Like, I don't know about him.
It's the biggest problem with him and Corum. I mean, as far as prospects, because Penix to me, 24, 25 as a pro.
Yeah, he'll make his debut.
So many injuries. Yeah. Dude. And then Corum, I love him to death too. I think he's a phenomenal talent, but he has 600 plus college carries and a torn ACL. And that's just brutal as well. It's just like that. That's all I can think of whenever I think of tons of college carries is Monty Ball out of Wisconsin. Yeah. Someone that was getting a lot of hype as a pro prospect, but just when you have that much tread on your tires coming in, it's just really hard. But I love Corum to death. And thank goodness he played in the NIL era and actually got paid in college for all those carries.
All right, guys, let's move on to take the over NFL Week 18. Let's have Will go last because he usually has the best advice. I'm going to start because I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to give you the Bears and Packers. It's at 44. Did you take it?
Yeah, I was going to go.
Everybody.
It's the most exciting game of the weekend.
I was going to say, it's a good rivalry game. Do you have a backup? I don't have a backup.
Yeah, keep going. Just talk, and I'll look at DraftKings real quick.
Okay, I'll keep going. I just think, Fields he might be playing for his job. Both teams have sort of been balling out. I think the Packers have put up like over 30 the last couple games. Plus, Aaron Rodgers, who seems to be in the news for everything and anything lately with the Jimmy Kimmel feud. But he fueled this rivalry by saying on the Pat McAfee show, is it a rivalry anymore? If they can't beat us, is it a rivalry? So, he might not be wrong about that in terms of like when he was there, but no, this is still a rivalry. These teams are just going to like roll over and not try. So, yep, that's mine.
Dude, I thought you were taking Iowa basketball. This is BS.
Look, am I allowed to take Iowa women's basketball? Because I'd take Caitlin Clark all day, every day. Like,
Didn't she drop like 40 with a buzzer beater last night?
Step back on the logo. Step back on the logo.
Just unreal. Unreal. I guess I'll just go Vikings Lions over 45. I know it's quite a few points, but I think both teams have something to play for. If the Vikings start Nick Mullins and not Jaron Hall, I think they'll actually put up points because that Jaron Hall performance was one of the worst things I've ever seen. And just the Lions, I know, give a crap, and I think they would really like to knock off a division rival for making the playoffs. So I guess give me the Lions.
Yeah, I'll get into mine, but I do want to talk about that Bears game really briefly because that's where my notes were. This is the most narrative-laden game I've ever seen with one team that's already eliminated. I mean, the Bears are 4-2 since Justin came back, and both of those losses were two of those highly improbable, less than 5% losses. So they've been balling. Packers defense, Tyler knows, has completely imploded, and they have no way to stop DJ Moore, none whatsoever. But as far as narratives, you've got the bookends thing where the Bears started this year so optimistic, got pounded by the Packers on opening day. Now they have the chance to come and end the Packers season, which, by the way, this is the same situation as last year's Lions, who then went on to take over the North. And excuse me, team that'll get in if it's not the Packers, it's the Seahawks again. So let's hope history repeats itself. I think both teams are going to be pushing. But speaking of a rivalry that involves eliminated teams, also speaking of Iowa football, we're going to do the Jets Patriots. Right now, the number's at 30.5. It would be one of the lowest totals in football history. And frankly, it's a crappy game. It does not warrant lowest totals in football history. I mean, the Patriots defense is not good enough for that, frankly. I mean, the Patriots defend the run well, but the Jets are going to be able to find success through the air against what has been made of our secondary. Their defense is really solid, but who knows what the motivation levels are going to be on their end as far as ours. We haven't lost to them since 2015. It's the one thing that we still have as one of the league's worst franchises at this point. So, would love to see that keep going. And I know they would love to kind of end that. So I think there's going to be some intensity. Maybe it'll be defensively, that'll shine out on the defensive end, but I just think 30.5 is way too low for this number.
Well, shout out to the NFL because I think there's a record 20 teams still in contention.
It's unbelievable.
In the final week of the season, I think it tied 2006, but like you can't not love like meaningful football. So I'm here for it. Let's move on to Did You See This? We're going to pick one thing that we saw over the weekend or however you guys want to do it. It could be last night, it could be a week ago. I want to hear something notable, funny, whatever it is. I'm going to start. I need to talk about Ben Herbstreit. And it's not Kirk
Ben, the GOAT.
It's not his son. It's his 10-year-old, 95-pound golden retriever. The dude was the talk of the town at the Rose Bowl. He was, I think, the first animal or dog to get a credential at the Rose Bowl. He was rolling around with the players after the game. He goes with Kirk everywhere, basically. And I think I was reading about it. I think it's sort of like a support dog because that family's had a rough time with Zach Herbstreit, his son, who's a tight end at Ohio State. He was hospitalized in June with a heart condition, and he's still receiving treatment. So, he's talked about it, and he said it's basically bringing a piece of home around with him because the dude is probably the busiest dude in football in terms of commentating. But yeah, it's actually really interesting, the story. He's had golden retrievers for 40 years, his family has. He has 3 other ones, Theo, Mitch, and Peter. I just love him, man. I love dogs, and if I'm going to get a chance to talk about it, I'm going to do it.
A quick Herbstreit shout out too, because he had the best take of the weekend is that he knows all the commercialization of college football. He is petitioning for the national championship every year to be at the Rose Bowl. And I could not agree more.
Wow.
Just watching, there's nothing like that Rose Bowl sunset during that game. It's just such a beautiful shot. It should be where all roads lead to in college football.
It's especially painful that it's not the Rose Bowl this year when we have a Big Ten team and a Pac-12 team in the last year of the Pac-12. If there was ever a Rose Bowl net, I think they should just retroactively rename the Michigan game versus Alabama just the college football playoff semifinal, and they should move this game to the Rose Bowl because it just deserves to be the Rose Bowl, though it's not New Year's Day. But yeah, gotta love Ben Herbstreit. I just got my own first puppy this weekend, the day before the Rose Bowl. Now my goal is for us to be credentialed together, me and my little dog, Charles Woodson Schwartz. And yes, that's his name. Go Blue. But we got him the day before the Rose Bowl. There's only one thing to do. But for my Did You See This, I'm going to take a look at a literal Did You See This? Because a lot of these Did You See This is that we do are things that everyone saw. This one went unnoticed and got uncalled. Blake Corum took one of the most vicious face masks I've ever seen in my life on his game-winning touchdown run. He got turned around 180 degrees. He ended up with his back to the end zone, no momentum, 3 yards to go and 2 defenders between him and the end zone, and he scored the touchdown. I know we've talked about Corum a lot, but that's just like an under the radar like moment within a giant over the radar moment that somehow got missed. I mean, there's endless "did you see this" as I could have done from the Rose Bowl. I mean, snapping issues from both teams in a semifinal, really, but that Corum one, I think I just wanted to bring light on just his toughness, determination, and I don't know, it kind of encapsulates everything about why he came back for one more shot.
I'll just go really quickly. I think the Rose Bowl one was one of mine, but just, I don't know if you saw this. Jordan Love won NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Pretty fired up about that. Tyrese Halliburton won Eastern Conference Player of the Week of the NBA. It's been a great week for your boy. I'm really buzzing right now, so I'll take it.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today, guys. If you like the show, please like and subscribe. You can do that anywhere you can find podcasts, at Spotify, YouTube, wherever you guys get your stuff. And don't forget to check out our newsletter. Make sure to sign up for that. The link is in the description. I'm Patrick. It's Tyler and Will, and we will see you guys next week after the national championship game, right? Here we go. Let's do it. All right. Peace, y'all.
I think you're wrong about the best team in college football. I think it's Georgia, but that's just a biased take. If they're fully healthy.
The committee chose the 4 best teams, so we know that it can't be Georgia.